Good morning. Thank you for all being here today. My name is Jim Kelly. I'm Vice President of Government and Community Relations and Corporate Communications for Hawaiian Electric. And there's a lot of folks here today, and I'm glad there's so much excitement around public safety power shutoff. Really important to show that this is a collaborative effort, and that's part of the reason we wanted to start with a photo with our emergency responder and critical infrastructure partners. We've really been working not only with folks here on Oahu, but we have Assistant Chief from Maui here today. We've also been working with Hawaii Island, and so this is really an operation that is going to involve 4 islands, and coordinating and collaborating is really a key to making it work the right way. So what we're going to do, I'll walk you through, Hawaiian Electric folks will do a quick kind of a walkthrough on what PSPS is. I think you should all have the maps that are handed out there, and all of this information is going to be on our website. I think it's on the website right now, so the maps will be on the website as well. So we'll walk through that. We'll have some of our first responders and critical infrastructure partners will come up. Everybody will be available for questions after, and then we're going to walk downstairs and we're going to do a quick walkthrough of our system operations center. We're going to be in a gallery. You can basically look into SysOps. You can't shoot video or take pictures in there, but we will have B-roll that you can use. It's been sanitized so that you can use it. But if you haven't been there before, it's really interesting, and that's where the decisions are made, and that's where if we end up doing a PSPS, that's where it would take place. So with that, I'll get started. Again, thanks everyone for being here today. We're here to describe exactly what public safety power shutoff is. We know that wildfires are now a top hazard in Hawaii. We know that Hawaiian Electric has an important role in keeping the public safe, but it's also something that we all have a part to play. So what is PSPS? Hawaiian Electric may preemptively shut off power to areas that are of high risk of wildfire during periods of high winds, low humidity, and drought conditions to reduce the possibility of an ignition from electric equipment. This is an action that is a last line of defense. We know it will be disruptive and will create many challenges in the affected communities for individuals, for businesses, and for public facilities. That's why we're working closely with first responders, critical service providers, emergency management agencies, some of whom are here today, to do this in a way that is going to keep people safe. We've never done this before. If you look at the experiences of California utilities when they first did PSPS, it was really rough. That's why we're working with them, those utilities and other consultants, other experts. We're trying to learn from their mistakes. We're trying to adopt their best practices. We're going to learn and we're going to improve, and as we're able to use more technology, and this summer we're going to be installing 54 weather stations across our system, we're going to be able to limit the impacts and possibly the duration of PSPS events by helping us make better informed decisions. So we're going to talk today about how PSPS will work exactly. And we'll urge everyone, especially those who are in the impacted PSPS areas, to be prepared to take action, to have a plan in case of an extreme weather event when Hawaiian Electric may shut off the power to keep the public safe by minimizing the risk of wildfire. Being prepared is really important. A PSPS is probably not an event that's going to last just a few hours. It could potentially last for days. So it's really important for everyone to take responsibility for being prepared themselves. And the role of the news media is extremely important in helping the public understand what PSPS is, how it works, and to help keep people informed during a PSPS alert. We want to work very closely with you to get you the information that you need and to get the correct information out to the public. We understand that turning off electricity is a disruption and a hardship. And it's possible we won't need to do it, but we need to be ready starting July 1st. In certain extreme conditions, It is the last line of defense. We're doing this announcement today on Oahu, and we're joined by some of the first responders and critical infrastructure providers from the city and county that we've been working with over the last several months. Hawaiian Electric has also been meeting regularly with first responders and emergency management agencies on Maui and Hawaii Island, and we'll be doing more announcements with our emergency management partners on those islands before July 1st. Now I'm going to introduce Colton Cheng, who is our Senior Vice President of Planning and Technology, who will describe how PSPS works. And then we'll hear from Brendan Bailey, who's Vice President of Customer Service, who's going to have important information about how customers can prepare and how we're going to be communicating with them. Colton?
Thanks, Jim. So as Jim mentioned, our plan is to be ready to launch our public safety power shutoff program on July 1st. This doesn't mean that we will have a PSPS alert on that day, but we want to be ready to do so from July 1 through the rest of the year. We know that there are many areas of Hawaii that are at risk of wildfire. And one of the many steps we've taken is to work with nationally recognized experts, as well as local knowledge from our own employees, to identify the areas of greatest risk using several factors. 1, fire history. 2, historic wind data. 3, fuel and vegetation located throughout land. Community and critical infrastructure impacts of a fire. Areas of any egress issues and limitations, as well, and lastly, the location of our electric equipment. We are installing devices called sectionalizers. It's basically a type of a switch that will enable us to reduce the customer impact in areas where we may be performing a power shutoff. These areas here, and you guys all should have a handout with maps, are areas subject to our PSPS alert for this initial PSPS program, which we will be using for this fire season. These maps will be updated as needed as time goes by, as we learn more from this and we gain more information, and it likely will be expanded into the future. But it's important for all of us to remember that wildfires can happen anywhere, not just in the areas we're talking about today. And those fires can be caused from any number of different sources. So these maps that we're sharing with you today are the start of our PSPS program for this year. For our customers, if you're not in one of these areas, it doesn't mean that there is no fire risk. And remember that fires can be caused by sources other than electrical equipment. As we do this, it's important to keep in mind a couple of things. Red flag and fire weather watches that we've all become familiar with, issued by the National Weather Service, will be among the things we will be considering in looking at PSPS. But those two sources of information will not be our only sources of data. We'll be looking at other sources as well. The Weather Service may issue red flag warnings when sustained winds are greater than 20 miles per hour, not very high, and we're in drought and low humidity conditions, using a very limited number of sources of data to make that determination. So before calling a PSPS alert, we will be looking at wind gusts at higher levels, roughly in the 45 to 50 mile per hour range. And historically, these kinds of winds and wind conditions during the summer months, where humidity levels are at their lowest and drought conditions are more likely, are actually quite rare. The specific thresholds that we ultimately choose to make decisions to do a preemptive shutdown may change and will be influenced by other factors, such as the information we're seeing from our own weather stations, the humidity levels we're seeing, where our circuits are located, as well as the observations we're getting from the field, from our field observers at the time. So we don't want the public to think that there will be a PSPS event and think it'll happen automatically just because a red flag warning condition is declared. Again, it'll depend upon a number of conditions. It's possible, as Jim Kelly mentioned earlier, that we can get through the entire wildfire season this year without any PSPS alert, but we want to be ready to do so just in case. Using our own weather data and the additional 54 weather stations that Jim talked about earlier, as well as forecasts, information from the National Weather Service that may indicate conditions for heightened wildfire risk, we will coordinate with government, many of the agencies, the first responders and emergency response agencies represented here today, as well as others, to notify them and the public of our plans to issue a PSPS alert. As I mentioned earlier, we also have plans as part of our program to deploy employees as field observers to augment our crews that are already out in the field to gather information directly from the ground, from sources like handheld weather stations, as well as their own physical visual observations about weather and watch for any signs of a fire. We hope to do all of this with 24 to 48 hours of advance notice before a decision to shut down power. That notification is when the public should activate their own emergency plans and determine in advance what they want to do or should do if power is shut off, potentially for days, depending upon the weather. And this is an important thing for all of us, but especially for those of us who require electricity to fulfill certain medical equipment needs. And again, all of this depends upon the weather. And we all know that weather conditions can change very rapidly. So a power shutoff can happen with very little notice under those conditions. When a PSPS event occurs, if we do preemptively shut down some circuits and the fire weather threat has ended, our crews, our qualified electrical workers will begin patrolling those circuits that have been de-energized. And they'll look for damage to infrastructure, any down lines, any vegetation caught within our lines, and look for other hazardous conditions. And they'll patrol the lines, make any repairs as needed before we put the power back on to those circuits and restore power to our customers. That process, depending upon the weather, depending upon the terrain of that circuit, depending upon whether it's daytime or nighttime, that process could take many hours, potentially even days to be re-energized. But throughout the event, we will keep everyone updated through various channels, including things like social media and radio, some of which Brendan will cover shortly. It's really important to note that if a PSPS event is conducted and we preemptively shut down power, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're shutting down power in all of the areas shown in the maps. Those areas in the maps are comprised of multiple circuits, and a decision to shut down power for a PSPS event will be done on a circuit-by-circuit basis. So it's much more likely that a power shutoff will occur for only a portion of the red areas noted in the maps. Next, Brendan Bailey, Vice President of our Customer Service Group, will provide important information about how all of our customers can prepare.
Thanks, Colton. Okay, good morning. My name is Brendan Bailey. I'm the Vice President of Customer Service for Hawaiian Electric. I wanted to take a couple of moments today and just talk about what this all means for our customers, and talk a little bit about how they can start planning for a PSPS event. So let me start by saying the best way that customers can prepare is by staying informed. We're going to be pushing out a lot of information to customers through various channels. So it's going to be critically important that we have updated customer information from our customers. And we're recommending that all customers, especially those in the PSPS area, actually reach out to us and update their information. They can do that through a couple of different ways. The first being through their online account if they have one set up. If they don't, they can go to hawaiianelectric.com, register for an online account. It's a very simple process. You just need your account number. That's located at the top of your bill. The site's going to ask you for a couple of additional identifying informations, and then that will be set up and you can update your contact information that way. We also have a mobile app that's available through the Apple Store or through Google Play if you have an Android device. And once you download that app, you can also update your information through the app. We'll also be pushing out notifications through that mobile app. So if you do use the mobile app, make sure that you go to the notifications tab and select the toggle switch that allows you to receive notifications so that when we send out a notification, you'll be able to see it. If you don't hit that toggle, then you won't see anything that we send out. And then customers always have the option to reaching out to our call center where they can speak to a customer service representative that can help them update their information as well. Obviously, we're going to be pushing out information through our website. That's going to be a valuable resource to all of our customers. It's going to have a lot of great information as far as what PSPS is, what it does, what we're going to be doing as we head towards July 1st. We're also going to be using social media. So if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, I guess now known as X. So we'll be pushing out information for updates and alerts that way as well. We just set up a dedicated 1-800 line that customers can call. That's been activated today, so it's available now. Customers can call that line. They'll enter their island that they're interested in, and it will provide a listing of areas that will be subject to PSPS. So that's up and running. And then as Colton and Jim mentioned, we do have the maps now available on our website as well, so customers can go there to see if they're in a PSPS area. Okay, let's talk about preparation. Fortunately, preparing for a PSPS is really similar to what we should all be doing to prepare for other weather events like hurricanes. So you're going to want to have supplies to last through an extended outage, which, as Colton mentioned, could be up to several days. So you want to have your water, your food, your batteries, your flashlights, that sort of thing. One difference in a PSPS event is that there's actually going to be areas outside of the PSPS area that will still have power, depending on weather conditions. So part of your plan for customers could be, if you have friends or family members in areas outside of the PSPS, you can go there if that's an option for you, and if your friends or family are amenable to having you as company for those days. Yeah, Henry's laughing. Mine probably would not. Okay, I wanted to mention specifically our special needs customers. So we have customers that use medical devices that depend on electricity. For those special needs customers, they're going to need to pay special attention to the alerts and notifications that go out. And they need to have a plan that specifically addresses their medical needs during an outage period. If those customers haven't done so already, we have a dedicated website page set up where we can take their information, inform us that they have a special medical need, give us their updated contact information, and that will provide us with a way to reach out directly to them in the event that there's a PSPS so that we can ensure they get these notifications. So we're going to spend special attention for those customers and make sure that they are taken care of during the PSPS event. Okay, and just wrapping up. So, as Jim and Colton mentioned, we do understand that this is going to be a heavy lift for our customers, right? It's a burden whenever the power goes out. But we're trying to limit the impacts to our customers. So as Colton mentioned, we're working very closely with government agencies, other utilities, the telecoms, especially to make sure that they're able to ride through these PSPS events. Community stakeholders and our commercial customers, we've been reaching out to them for the past month to make sure that they are as prepared as they can be during a PSPS event. But the bottom line is that we know we can't do this together. Alone. We need to do this together. So we want to thank everybody in advance for their cooperation and understanding as we head towards July 1st. And I'm going to hand it back to Jim.
Thank you, Brendan. I want to recognize who is here today, and then we'll have some of our partners come up, say a few words. We have James Barrows, Administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. We have Hiro Toya from the Honolulu Department of Emergency Management. Kalani Hau, Chief of the Honolulu Fire Department. We have Darren Chun, Assistant Chief from Honolulu Police Department. Dr. Jim Ireland, who is with the Honolulu Emergency Services Department, and we also have representing the Maui Fire Department Assistant Chief Jeff Giese, and our friend Ernie Lau from the Board of Water Supply as well. Not everybody's going to get up and speak, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that they were here, and everyone will be available for questions enthusiastically after we're done with our remarks here. So with that, I'm going to ask James Barrows to come up.
Aloha. Thank you, Jim. Today is a great example of the key and critical partnerships we have throughout the state, from our private partners to the county to state agencies across the state, with the same goal and objectives of making Hawaii safer and our communities more resilient. As Colton mentioned, the 54 weather stations that they're deploying, the National Weather Service has their remote stations, and the state of Hawaii, through Department of Transportation, with partnership with DLNR, will have additional remote weather stations. These weather stations will help inform the meteorologists on what areas of concern we need to be focused on. It'll help inform the decisions that Hawaiian Electric needs to make, that the emergency managers and first responders need to make. In addition, this past year, our partnership with the U.S. Fire Administration and the deployment of M5 sensors, again, helping us inform the decision makers on areas of concern. These partnerships across the state is making us stronger, and it makes us stronger every time we meet and talk and work through situations. One of the partnerships is with the Hawaii Wildlife Management Organization, who brings experts together with fire experts, agriculture. They sit and they look at the hazardous of wildfires. They provide us information on these potential hazardous areas. They also provide key information for the community on how to make themselves safer. So that's another key partnership when we're talking fires. This connectivity throughout the state and the county with our federal partners, that's what makes Hawaii strong. We're working with Hawaiian Electric and their safety shutoff, and we'll continue to work with them as we move forward into the next season. But as mentioned, we're going into hurricane season. That 2-week ready will make us ready for a hurricane, a tsunami, a power shutdown, a brush fire. So we encourage our communities to be 2 weeks ready. The strength of our state is the kapu. Our ability to collaborate and support one another, that is our true strength. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Now I'd like to have Hiro Toya from the Department of Emergency Management, City and County of Honolulu, come up.
Hey, good morning. Hiro Toya with the City and County of Honolulu. So, in the immediate aftermath of the wildfires last summer, the City and County of Honolulu's priority was to provide assistance to Maui County to the best of our abilities. And 2 weeks later, Mayor Blangiardi directed city departments to review Oahu's wildfire risks, ensure that all of our plans, policies, and procedures and investments are informed by those risks. And since then, we've established our Wildfire Preparedness Working Group, which meets on a regular basis. And the purpose of that group is to promote a more efficient information sharing system, and also allows us to have greater cross-sector collaboration. But most importantly, for us to be able to elevate issues related to wildfire risk to the highest levels of City County Honolulu government on a regular basis. So as it's been mentioned, wildfire preparedness is a collective responsibility for all of us. It's the state, it's the counties, it's our nonprofit organizations, individuals and families. And we see Hawaiian Electric taking responsibility to reduce wildfire risk as much as possible. And, it's sometimes easier for us to work in our own little silos rather than reaching out and collaborating. But for us to do right by the community, for us to be effective, for us to actually
effectively reduce wildfire risks, it really takes all of us working together. And no one organization can be everything to everybody, but by all of us working together, we can maximize our collective capability to protect our community. So when HECO informed us of their plans to implement PSPS, potentially starting this summer, we already began strengthening those relationships. We've increased our collective understanding of wildfire risks, and we already had a forum in which to discuss these issues and to elevate them up as needed. So we recognize PSPS as a wildfire risk mitigation measure, but it also comes with its own impacts. And on the city's end, we've had this focused effort to try to reduce wildfire risk as much as possible, but now there's a line of effort towards preparing for PSPS and its impacts. And what we're talking about is potentially a prolonged power outage situation in a high wildfire risk situation. So as you'll hear from the other speakers, we are preparing to be able to continue our essential services during those conditions. And we certainly have a role to play as a city, but I urge everyone who can to be prepared this summer for emergencies, including hurricanes, approaching hurricane season, but we could have power outage for any number of reasons, including PSPS. So I really urge those who can to be prepared this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiro. Now, Honolulu Fire Chief Kalani Howe.
Aloha and good morning, everyone. Kalani Howe, Fire Chief of the Honolulu Fire Department. You're going to hear a common theme with all of the speakers that we are collaborating, working together, and it's truly our relationships that is going to help us succeed in any type of situation that comes up. But as firefighters, training and preparing is part of who we are and what we do. And we've been reviewing and updating our disaster preparedness plans even well before Maui wildfires. But being proactive, like Hiro stated, the mayor wanted to create our wildfire working group to study the lessons learned from Maui, and again to collaborate with our partners and stakeholders and share issues and challenges and to find solutions to whatever incident that may arise. Again, once being informed of HECO's power shutoff plan, part of our city work group implemented it and put it into our overall disaster preparedness plan. And as HECO stated, the power shutoffs will be a last resort. So we urge the public, especially those living in those impacted areas, to learn more about the plan. And in doing so, you can reinforce your readiness by taking a proactive approach to safeguard your homes and your communities. Hawaii is a fire-prone state, and the wildfire risk for this summer and into the fall is relatively high. So it's crucial that we all take it seriously and prepare accordingly. In Hawaii, the majority of wildfires or ignitions are caused by humans. So we are asking the public to be careful with campfires, barbecues, where you drive and idle your vehicles, and when and where you use equipment like welding and grinders that generate sparks. We all have a role to play, and this is a collective effort that will require all of our participating. HECO is doing their part to reduce possible fires that may come from the power distribution in high-risk areas. But again, I want to rest assured that everyone is working together to ensure that we minimize any type of ignitions. And finally, to be aware, be proactive and safe this summer. For more information, please visit our website at fire.honolulu.gov, where you can also find the Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization Ready, Set, Go Wildfire Preparedness Action Guide. So you can go onto our website so you can learn about how you can protect yourself and the community. Aloha, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Howe. Now is Assistant HPD Chief Darren Chun.
Good morning, Assistant Chief Darren Chun from the Honolulu Police Department. I'll give you a brief statement, but basically it's going to be more of the same that I just said. The Honolulu Police Department has been working with Hawaiian Electric and the Department of Emergency Management to prepare for the power shutoff program. And we appreciate them reaching out to us and keeping us informed of their plans thus far. Power outages are something that officers are used to dealing with, whether it would be a downed traffic light or an unexpected neighborhood-wide outage due to a storm or hurricane. We want to assure everyone that the Honolulu Police Department will be heavily involved during a power shutoff, just as we are during an unplanned sudden power outage. Primarily, the HPD plans for 5 specific areas. First, traffic control. In the event of a shutoff or outage, HPD will monitor affected traffic control signals to determine whether additional officers are needed at intersections with significant vehicular or pedestrian traffic. We are also planning for the utilization of alternate access roads if it's deemed necessary. Second, safety and security. We will be supplementing officers in affected areas in order to provide enhanced security and assistance. We are stressing that everyone use caution when driving in affected areas, as street lamps will be out, so lighting may be limited. Third, communications. HPD has backup generators and portable mobile radio repeaters for our communication system, which are regularly tested. What that means for the public is that the 911 system and emergency radios will still work during a shutoff, just as they do in an outage. People in need of emergency services will still be able to call 911. Fourth, evacuation. The Honolulu Police Department has been working with the Department of Emergency Management and the Honolulu Fire Department to devise an evacuation process in the event it becomes absolutely necessary to evacuate people during a critical incident, such as a wildland fire. The HPD will assist by helping to alert people of the evacuation and safely moving them out of dangerous environments. And fifth, just like everybody's been saying, interagency cooperation. As we've seen in the past, interagency cooperation is a critical component in any emergency situation. As first responders, we recognize the need to work together with our city, state, and federal partners to ensure a successful outcome. In the event of a long-term power outage, we will work with our partners to share concerns, discuss needs, and provide assistance to each other to help our community through the crisis. And finally, we ask our community to partner with us during these outages by doing the following, as mentioned before. First, prepare for outages just as you would a hurricane. Don't wait until the last minute to come up with a plan of action for yourself and your family. Make whatever arrangements necessary and gather whatever supplies are needed ahead of time. Second, if you must be on the road during a shutdown or outage, drive with caution. Be mindful that lighting conditions may be bad. Give yourself ample time to get to where you're going, as traffic lights may be out, which will cause delays. As police officers, we know how challenging and disruptive power outages can be to the community. So we remain committed to doing our part, serving the community, and working with our partners until the power is restored. Thank you.
Thanks. And our last speaker will be Dr. Jim Ireland from the Emergency Services Department, City and County, Honolulu.
Aloha, everyone. Jim Ireland, Honolulu Emergency Services. And, you know, there's a lot of good information shared today, and I just want to highlight a few things and talk about EMS's role in these events. Number one is I heard a lot about preparedness, and really the time to prepare is today, not July 1st. And as mentioned, these are also general preparations for any major weather event like a hurricane. And I believe we are in hurricane season shortly. Is that right, Hiro? Yeah, very shortly. So this is just good advice. And, you know, when I hear that the power may be out for days, you know, part of being prepared is having communications and having your cell phone have the capacity to be charged for 3 or 4 days and having that plan beforehand so you're able to keep communicating via that mechanism, if that's what you use, whether it's with authorities or friends and family. So that's just one thing that comes to mind. So the time to prepare is today. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the medically fragile patients, because that's really, I think, where EMS is going to have the biggest role. I want to echo what else was said about the partnerships here. I talk probably on a daily basis with our fire department, with Hero at DEM, our police department, and we have a really good team here at the city. We work well with our state and federal partners, but I think the strength of our relationship will and has shown when we are challenged by weather, community events, or disasters. And I think this working group that the mayor put together on wildfires is timely, but I think all of this preparation we're doing at the city will translate into a better response should this event happen. And that also includes other city agencies like the Board of Water Supply, DFM, and others. Now getting to EMS specifically, that's our District 1. I'm going to just talk about the Leeward Coast for now. I know this involves some other parts of Oahu, but our District 1 is the Waianae Coast, west of Oahu, and we have 5 ambulances and a district chief who's the supervisor of that district. Those are ambulances in Ewa Beach, Waipahu, Nanakuli, Makakilo, and Waianae. Now, if someone is having a life-threatening emergency during one of these events, they should call 911 just like they would any day for a life-threatening emergency, and we will respond. Now, if the call volume goes up because of this event, then we would do a few things. One, we would recall extra personnel, and we would shift ambulances out to this district to help meet the need. We also have an ambulance bus that can take, I believe, about 18 patients. So if we needed that for ambulance patients or to evacuate a nursing home or to just move more patients, we would activate that. Specifically, our concerns are with the medically fragile. And these are people who rely on home oxygen generators that need power. These are folks that may be on home dialysis or need dialysis treatments because of their kidney issues, and also people that are on home ventilators. So those folks in particular need to have a very specific plan to power their equipment during these emergencies. And whether it's a generator or a plan to relocate, those plans are very important. Again, if any of those patients or anyone has a life-threatening emergency during one of these events, call 911 and we will respond. We've been working with the Healthcare Association of Hawaii and the dialysis units, and they have plans themselves to take, for instance, someone who dialyzes in Waianae and move them to the one in Ewa Beach or one in town or other places, Mililani, et cetera, to help their own patients within their system. And so those plans are part of our planning as well. The facilities in those areas that provide much needed services like dialysis in the community. In Waianae, Nanakuli and Waianae, there's 3 dialysis units, and there's 2 in the Makakilo area. So if they were to lose power, they internally have their own plans to move patients. And that's also very important that the community who provide medical care, in the affected communities are able to sustain that. So I'm very comfortable in, again, the relationships we have here at the city and our internal planning. But I do appreciate the opportunity to speak today and later answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I know we have a very Oahu-centric group here today, and I really want to emphasize that this is an effort that's going on in Maui County and Hawaii County as well. I appreciate Assistant Chief Giese here today from Maui County, and our Hawaii Island partners weren't able to get over here today, but really do want to emphasize this is what was described today and what described about regular meetings and preparation for PSPS is going on the neighbor islands as well. That's really important. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. I think we'll start to make sure that everybody gets a shot. Everybody will get one question and go around, and then if there's more questions, we'll circle back again. And then afterward, if you want to grab somebody to talk some more, you're certainly welcome to do that. And then when we wrap this up, then we'll go downstairs with system operations. So, Lynn.
So you had mentioned that in California when they did this, they had some growing pains and some problems. Can you explain some of those problems and how we're going to try to prevent that from happening here?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that we've heard from our California colleagues was it's mainly around communication, and that's what we're trying to do today. We're actually getting out ahead of this and trying to at least get people to understand what the concept of PSPS is. We've said that we know that this is going to be really disruptive, that this is going to have a very a big impact on people and on businesses and communities. But at the end of it, we don't want anyone to say, hey, what's with the power being shut off? I didn't know anything about that. What we're doing over the next several months and even after July 1st is we're really communicating in all kinds of different channels to make sure that people know this is coming, know what it is, know what it isn't, and give them the information to take action to make sure that they keep themselves safe. I think what we heard from California was they started it kind of abruptly. People were very much caught off guard. They didn't have a lot of time to coordinate with our, emergency partners, and so that's something that over time has really changed with them. And again, we're hoping here, especially with your help, that we can get everyone to at least know what PSPS is. Henry.
Colton mentioned that you can shut down circuit by circuit. How many circuits on each of the 4 islands are being covered by PSPS?
You know that off the top of your head? Yeah, I think we can get that for you. The news release includes the number of customers that are affected, but I don't know if we can probably find the circuit numbers for you.
Perhaps a modification of that is, what is the largest number of customers covered by one circuit? You can get back to us.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah, we'll get back to you on the circuit question. Sorry. We're taking questions online too, so one in the room and then I'll look online and see the question.
That's from KGLN. In your models or projections, is there an estimate of average of how many times this will be triggered in a year period?
No, we've heard from the National Weather Service when you just look at red flag warnings, which again aren't just the only trigger, that over the last 10 years, some years we've had 0. I think the most we've had is 5. I think we're hoping that it will be more toward the 0 end, but it's hard to say. It really does depend on what the weather patterns are. Yeah, myself.
So are there any water pumps or cell towers or any other type of really critical infrastructure that have been flagged in these areas that would be affected or out of service?
We have been talking to the telecom providers, and they are, my understanding is they each have, don't go anywhere. They each have backup generation for these areas, and I think some of that is required that they have. So we're still working with them. It's really important, and they understand that. I mean, this is how a lot of people are going to get their information about when the event starts, updates on how it's going, update when it ends, and so having the telecom providers being up and running in those areas is really going to be important. Now, Ernie, you can talk about water.
Thanks, Jim. Ernie Lau, Board of Water Supply Manager. The impacted area that Hawaiian Electric's identified with us, and we've been talking with them since around April this year, are the facilities along the leeward coast of Oahu, which is basically Nanakuli all the way out to Makaha, including Keao area too. So for the Board of Water Supply, they've identified maybe 5 or 6 circuits that could be impacted, that we have accounts on those circuits that could be subject to shut off. At this point, they're trying to narrow down the number of areas or customers impacted by the sectionalizing switches that Colton mentioned. But unfortunately, the Board of Water Supply facilities, we have water tanks up on hills. We have wells up in the valleys, and these happen to also be the wildland areas. So we're anticipating probably most, if not all of our facilities along the leeward coast we would have a power shutoff, be subject to a power shutoff. So Marcel, the issue is going to be how do we supply the needs of the leeward coast of Oahu? And I'll give you a little bit of background. From Nanakuli all the way out to Makaha, the average demand for water is about 9 million gallons a day of fresh drinking water that we have to provide. There are about, we think maybe about 50,000 people living along the leeward coast. So how do we meet the needs of the community out there? And our objective through all of this is to keep the water flowing and keep the water system operating as long as we possibly can. We do depend on electricity to pump from underground aquifers deep underground and pressurize the water to put it into the water system. We are fortunate in Waianae Valley, there are 2 tunnel sources that don't rely on gravity, that don't rely on electricity, that are gravity sources. They flow without electricity. But they can only provide about 1.5 million gallons per day, and that's in the back of Upper Waianae Valley. So where does the water come from? How do we make up the other 9 million? About 5 million gallons a day is pumped from the Ewa area near Ko'olina, Barbers Point. We pump water from Ewa, Waipahu to supply the needs of the leeward coast. So out of the 9 million, take away 5, take away 1.5 million. I think we're looking at 3.5 to 4 or so. And Marcel, don't fault me for my math. I'm trying to do this on the fly. But so how do we meet the needs of supplying that balance to meet the needs of our community? So we're going to be mobilizing. We have a limited number of backup generators. Our plan, as soon as we get notice, is to mobilize those generators and get them located at key pumping stations along the leeward coast to help make up the additional water needed to meet the daily demand of our customers. One thing I would ask of all our customers for the Board of Water Supply, if the power goes out, immediately don't think, I can go water my yard, I can go wash my car. As soon as the power goes out, think about conservation. Thinking about saving that water that is there, because temporarily, until we can get generators in place on the leeward coast, we're going to rely on whatever water is located in our water tanks. Everybody's seen our water tanks up on the hills, build big round concrete structures with a roof on top of it. So that is water stored there to meet the demands of our community. And it's really a limited amount of storage, maybe for a day at best. But if we have a main break or people don't cut back on the usage, then those tanks could run dry, and then eventually the system would run dry. So we would ask people, our customers, we need your kokua. Save water. As soon as the power goes out or you get messages coming in about a public safety power shutoff, take whatever water you need to for your family during the shutoff, and the advice of 14 days of water storage, at least 1 gallon a day. And I will just say 1 gallon a day is just enough to survive. Doesn't mean you can flush your toilet or you can wash your clothes or take a bath. So you may want to even store more than 1 gallon a day for your community. For your home. So prepare, conserve, and we will mobilize our generators as soon as we can get them out there and start pumps back up when we lose HECO power. But during the whole public safety power shutoff, which Jim's mentioned could be multiple days, not only the days during the weather conditions justify a red flag and the other conditions that HECO is looking at, but also there are days to recover, to clear the system, so they can safely turn the power back on without creating fires. So that could be multiple days. During that whole period of time, we're going to be running on backup power and the gravity sources in Waianae. So we need everybody's kokua to save water. Marcel, did I answer your question? One thing to keep in perspective, this is the beginning of hurricane season, starts in June 1st of this year, or every year. We have about 90-something well stations that require HECO electricity. We have 94 or so booster pumping stations that move water from lower elevations to higher elevations to serve those customers at higher elevations. That's about 180 different pumping stations. They all require HECO power. So during a hurricane, we don't have 180 generators in our base yard ready to be deployed. So we're going to need everybody, if it was a hurricane event, also to conserve water and use it wisely. Not every area will have water during a hurricane event. During the public safety power shutoff, our objective is to try to keep the whole system operating as long as possible. But I'll stop talking there. Thank you.
Sure.
So this is Hiro Toys. I just want to add to what Ernie was explaining, and to be clear to all the listeners and viewers out there, Ernie and the Board of Water Supply and all the other utilities, they're going to do everything they can to keep their utility functional during a PSPS or any other situation. But to be clear, the areas that are potentially affected by the PSPS goes beyond the area identified by HECO. So that's the area that's not going to have power, and not having power in those areas means that other infrastructure may be affected, and there may be outages beyond that. So this preparedness message is not just for those that are inside those identified polygons by HECO, it's for everybody in our community.
There's one important thing I forgot to mention to you. Like I said, our objective is to keep the water system operating as long as possible using backup power, gravity sources, pumping water from one area to another. But should the water system go dry, we may be, depending on the length of the outage and the extent of it, we may ask customers when the power comes back on and we can actually pump water into the pipes and pressurize the system, that we may have to issue a boil water notice until we can actually check the system for the bacterial quality that make sure it's safe. We may need to issue a boil water notice. So again, stay tuned, listen to the radio stations. We'll send messages out through social media, through our website, through DEM and other partners here. But if we have to do a boil water notice, if you want to use it, you have to boil the water, disinfect it before drinking it, until we can get the tests done to check on microbial quality. And it takes 24 to 48 hours to get the test results back. So as soon as it comes back on, we're going to send our staff out to take water samples and start to run those tests. And then if it's clear, then we'll lift the boil water notice. So this is only should the water system go dry during this public safety power shutoff. Thank you.
Thanks, Ernie. I've been, of course, uprated for not repeating the question that was asked so that everyone could hear it. But Henry, I actually have an answer for you on the number of circuits affected. So on Oahu, it's 15 circuits. Maui County is 45, and that includes 2 on Molokai and 34 circuits on Hawaii Island. Hiro and Ernie made a really important point I want to emphasize. Just because, you know, if there's a weather event and it's affecting, obviously, the areas on the map, there's probably going to be outages on other part of the island, too. So I really want to make sure your point is exactly right, that people should be ready. It isn't just, oh, you know, my poor friends over on the west side, they're going to have their power go out. I mean, if there's enough of an event that the winds are strong, that it's probably going to affect other areas, too. So people just have to be ready no matter where they live. Okay, Andrew.
So this initial area, I think, covers about 48,000 Hawaiian Electric customers. With the envision, expansion later, how big could that get? How many customers do you think, eventually this program could cover, or is what you have now like most, and windward sides of the islands probably won't have this, or explain the scope of future potential expansion?
Okay, so the question is this the size of the maps that they're going to be? Are there going to be more customers affected in the future, potentially, beyond the ones that are there now? Yes, I would say it has a potential. As Colton said, this is our first shot at this. And so we're going to learn a lot this summer. Now, on the other side, we're hoping that we're going to be able to remove some areas as we get more weather stations. We're actually going out and doing a lot of grid hardening work so that the possibility of some sort of an ignition from our equipment would be reduced. So these maps are going to constantly, for this year, these are the maps. It isn't like we're going to put out another set in another couple months. This is it for this wildfire season, which I think we're looking at is between now and the end of the year. And then we'll constantly be updating those. And again, hopefully we get to the point where they are in California over the next several years as we get more technology on the grid, that the areas that are affected by a PSPS would be very much smaller. The time involved would be much shorter, and it could be a much more precise effort than what we're going to be doing here, which, you know, frankly is a pretty blunt instrument. I got a question online from Hawaii Public Radio. I want to follow up, Andrew.
Yeah,
All right. All right, 1.5 questions.
Double, you know, or is the more likelihood that the number of customers affected goes down? You know, double or triple?
No, I don't think we. Yeah,
these highest risk areas.
yeah, I don't think we're going to be talking about potentially tripling the number of customers affected. But again, it depends on weather. It depends on a lot of things. Our effort over time is to reduce the areas that are affected. So a question for Hawaii Public Radio, and I think she got a couple of them answered already from other questions, but she asked about the duration. What do we think the duration is going to be for these events? And again, that's pretty hard to estimate. I would think it would be at least 6 to 8 hours, and I don't even want to say at most, but I think for us, we're planning at the, you know, outside would be maybe 3 days. As we know, weather events, they don't just kind of show up and then disappear in a few hours. So it's likely it could last. And then, as Colton explained, there's also this restoration aspect, which is kind of like Ernie talking about testing the water. Once the event is over, then we have to send crews out to make sure, okay, what happened during that windstorm? Did stuff fall down? Are things broken? Things have to get fixed? Poles fell down? That takes time as well. So that could take hours, or that could take maybe up to a day. So we really don't want people thinking that, okay, when, you know, the winds die down, then they're going to get the all clear just like that, and the power is going to be back on immediately. But did I get is that for me? No? Okay, good. Marcel, I guess we can do another round.
Sorry, just
yeah.
to clarify, can you just mention, you know, we're starting out pretty blunt instrument here. You know, from what Henry said, it sounds like you think you could also isolate it as low as just to one single current or circuit. So when you were, you know, listing all those circuits, like in Maui, you have 45. You could isolate it.
Yeah, I mean, and I really want to be clear. I don't want to say I couldn't imagine, but I mean, we're not going to turn all those circuits off probably all at once. We're really looking for localized weather issues. So it could be just West Maui. Those maps right now are about as tight as we can make them with the sectionalizing, and you know, they're about as tight as we can be comfortable with them right now. But
you could conceivably go as low as one circuit.
I think that would be probably unlikely, but yes, it would be possible that we would be just doing a handful of circuits and not the whole area.
Just to clarify, why would it be unlikely?
Why would it be unlikely what?
To isolate it to just one circuit? Or two?
Oh, no, I think I was saying it was unlikely we'd turn the whole, you know, like all the circuits on Maui would all be turned off, or even all the circuits on the west side. I mean, I think it's possible, but I think most of the time we're trying to see, okay, can we minimize the number of circuits that we would have to turn off? But you know, some circuits, and this is one of the things we're working on, they start over here and they end up over there, and the fire risk may be higher at the end of the circuit, but the people who are here, they're going to have their power shut off too, because, you know, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put switches in that part where maybe the fire risk is lower, so that, you know, we are only affecting the areas where the risk is the highest. Yeah, Henry.
Henry Curtis, Ililani Media. California PSPS came about after the California PUC approved the process. Have you had any conversations with the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission about their leadership role in this issue?
have we had any discussions with the Hawaii PUC about their leadership role in this? We have been talking to the PUC about what our PSPS plans are, but this is our decision. We're the ones that are going to make the call. It's going to be in consultation with the people you see in the room here, but ultimately this is a decision that Hawaiian Electric will make. And then everyone can look at it afterward and decide if we made the right decision.
And just real quick, can you give a sense of how many medically fragile or medical special needs customers have registered or been identified? Even more so, is there a way to gauge how many more might be out there in these areas?
Yep. Question is how many medically fragile customers, how many people use equipment that runs on electricity. We have some that are registered with us already, but we know that there's a lot more out there. So right now we're in an effort to do everything we can to get people registered with us so that we have their information, especially customers who may not be customers. For example, if you're not the person that pays the electric bill, but you live in a house that maybe you're renting and somebody else pays the bill, then you're not going to be in our customer list. So we're going to want to make sure that we're getting people that use any kind of equipment and whatever the relationship is with us. And the main thing is that we want to make sure that they get the communication to them before we do a PSPS. That's right now what the best is we can do is to make sure that they're not surprised, that they're ready, they can make arrangements ahead of time to do something, go someplace, have somebody take care of them. That's the main thing. We don't want people to be stuck on the day of a PSPS and go, wow, I didn't know anything about that, and then they're all having to call 911. Okay, we've answered every potential question there could be about PSPS. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate everyone being here. I'm going to